Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Patrick Morris, and this is the Patrick O. Morris Show. Thank you for tuning in today. Today, my special guest is Curt Barry. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Patrick. Good to be here.
I gotta say, when I heard the story, kind of blew my mind. As a parent, I can't imagine, the struggles that you went through. I was connected with you through a mutual friend, and he sent me some of the videos that you had posted online, and there's just so many questions, and being, in today's economy, a father is not really looked at as such an important thing anymore. And the rights of fathers in our society and the legal system seems to be a challenge a lot of the times. And it's hard to... Where do we start?
Yeah,
Curt, where do we start?
The starting point is a difficult one, because everything you said is not something that hasn't been known for a long time. Mm-hmm. And the question is, where does it all stop, and where is there a fine line where things can be more defined as to the rights of individuals, fathers, mothers, as well as children, mm-hmm. in the family welfare system?
So the events that happened, in February 2015, maybe you could back up a little bit, because based on some of the stuff that has come up, you had some questions before that.
Yeah, I mean, there was anyone who's looked at all the videos online from the beginning, I've been asking the same questions, and the answers have eluded me so far from the people who are supposed to have been in charge of all the things that was going on with my son at the time. Mm-hmm. And February 2015, that was, of course, that was a heavy time, but that uphill battle was nothing new. Prior to that, since 2011, I've been going through those circumstances in the family court to try to get possession and be in the life of my sons, and being prevented by a system that stigmatizes and seeks to profile a lot of fathers, particularly black fathers in this country. Mm-hmm. And in February 2015, I thought that things were going to get easier, because that's when the court actually mandated that, I'm supposed to get access to my son now. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, it was an on and off cycle over years of the mother breaking the court record. There was a time when I saw my son in February 2014, mm-hmm. and after that, there was a gap of about 7 months, and I didn't see him again until October 2014.
Wow.
So, the question is, if the court orders something in 2014 in February, mm-hmm. why is there no enforcement of that order? And one can be kept from their child from 2014 to 2015 October. That's clearly alienation according to their rules and their standards.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this, because the challenges within the court system, that as a father, I have a friend of mine. She works in the court system. She says that she sees a lot of guys come in, and they have all the intentions in the world of being a part of their child's life. They want to do whatever they have to do in order to be a part of their child's life. But by the end of the court process, because a lot of it seems to be much more confrontational instead of a resolutional direction, by the end of it, a lot of the guys check out. A lot of the guys are kind of like, you know what, I can't do this anymore.
Well, Patrick, it's an economical assault. This court system, they facilitate the greatest exchange of wealth in the Western Hemisphere, and since the days of slavery, in my opinion. When you enter into that system, let's put it this way. I entered for the purpose of trying to get access to my children. And because in the judge's opinion, my application didn't meet his needs, he slapped me with a $3,000 fine of cost, right? Because he felt that my application was not sufficient. And with that now, he tells you that you should hire a lawyer. You're already $3,000 in the hole. The lawyer usually wants a retainer of $3,000 to $5,000 to even take your case on. And then you have this fear of, if you lose the court case again, you will get hit with costs. So now, during that time, he's telling me I must pay $600 per month in child support. So $600 per month plus $3,000 plus the retainer for a lawyer plus $5,000 plus my living expenses plus my older son trying to take care of my family. I will tell you, a lot of men check out in order to keep check on their mental health and on their family situation, because it's an economic assault. Most men are not disqualified from their children because they have an inability to take care of the children, but because of a inability of funds to challenge the system.
Wow. Given all of that,
Yes.
You're being told you need to hire a lawyer, and that's going to cost you $3,000 to $5,000, and you get a fine of $3,000.
That's right.
And you're paying $600 a month in child support.
That's right.
And all you want is access to be a part of your child's life.
Well, for me, in my case in particular, the silly thing about it is, at the conclusion of it all, they had to pay me back all of the money that they were charging me and forcing me to pay, because I ended up winning the case. And unfortunately, my son died in the midst of me trying to get access to him, and so the monies that they had to pay back to me, it wasn't anything. But the system is so irresponsible that they will look at your financial situation first and stress that and push that beyond the best interests of the child. Because at the time that I was going through this, I am telling this judge that, look, I'm just trying to get access, right? And in the meantime of me trying to get access, legally the mother had this access and this custody, but physically she wasn't seeing the child at all, right? So in the meantime, the child is left with the grandmother and these two sisters who he died with. And this was something that was known to the courts. And this is something that, when I stressed that he charged me $3,000 in cost, when I told him that my son was in a dangerous situation, he said that I'm only trying to demean the mother in the situation and her family. And, I would tell this man of situations where I'm going to pick up my son, and then there is, right in the square where there's living, there is live gunfire right there. The area is yellow taped. I cannot even go in. And it's not to say that if you live in metro housing that you shouldn't have access to children. I'm not saying that at all, right? Because there's people there who have children and they grow up very successfully and very healthy. What I was stressing, that in this particular situation, there was clear and present danger. And when these things were pointed out, it was considered a thing as trying to take away from the self-esteem of the mother. So the mother in these cases they put the mother as a barrier to you seeing your child, right? So you first must go through making sure the mother is well, she feels good about herself, everything's good, and she has complete control. Even if she's incompetent, even if the situations are unsafe, this is what they strive to do.
Why didn't you give up?
Why didn't I give up?
Yeah.
Well,
with and again, like I said, I've heard many stories of many men that they get to the point where they hit those financial walls. They can't afford a lawyer. If they do try to represent themselves, then they don't know the processes in regards to it. They're dealing with an angry ex-partner. There's so many different challenges, right? There are a lot of guys who do give up. Like, what was it that kept you going? That, given everything that you were facing with the courts, with your ex, with everything, what was it that made you say, you know what, I'm not going to give up?
I think possibly it depends. I can't tell you a winning formula as to by what angle a man gives up or doesn't give up. Mm-hmm. I can only speak for myself, and just based on my upbringing and my understanding, it's written, him who doesn't take care of his own is worse than a non-believer. Mm-hmm. So it's something that is spiritually mandated on me. You must take care of your children. My father took care of all his children. My parents are still together. I have 11 brothers and sisters. Right?
That's a big house.
I don't know of this lifestyle that I went there and someone could take your child away from you. I was living and I wasn't even aware of this court and the things that occur in there. Mm-hmm. So when I was hit with the situation of you cannot see your son for so and so long and you have to jump through these hoops and those hoops and then you have to pay for seeing your son, that was an absurdity to me, especially when I had also the bearing of Elijah's two older brothers. They wanted to be around him. They wanted to see their brother. So we were a team. We were a family, and Elijah needed to be with us. Mm-hmm. So that was something that influenced me also to say, look, the brothers have to be united. Elijah was delighted to be around his brothers, and they were delighted to be around him. And I did not like the separation that was going on. And to me, when you have children, the child is a reflection of you. It's your second self, and you're able to give more to yourself now than occurred in your previous life. It's supposed to be an improvement. So I had the drive to make sure that there was an improvement in the life of my three boys. And like I said, going through the situation and getting a lot of the things accomplished at the conclusion of it all, what I thought was the conclusion in 2015, Elijah was going to share the same schedule as his brothers and be with us the same amount of time. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, whatever happened before doesn't really matter. Going forward, he's going to have an enjoyable life, see full time that he has a great dad, great brothers and sisters, great families. He will go visit his family abroad. And I was positive that these things will happen because the amount of lies that I saw during the duration of this court case, the amount of insufficient evidence, the amount of bad decisions and assumptions that I saw going through this court system, nothing that's crooked would stand up. So I knew that they wouldn't be able to keep me forever. I knew that some point in time everything will just have to fall down because he wasn't straight whatsoever.
I can't begin to imagine your, I could, I've had my own experience with the courts.
Yeah.
Unpleasant experience with it. And there are many men who have had not a good experience. But I would say, what kept you sane?
What kept me sane?
Yeah, what kept you from losing your mind? When you're fighting this seemingly uphill battle. What kept you from losing your mind? When you look at your child, as you said, it's a part of you. It's a reflection of yourself, and you want to make sure that your child is doing much better than you did and experience much better things and greater things than you did. And so having to have this fight in order to try to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, what kept me sane is nothing that had any bearing in logic, right? But I was lucky to have good friends like Sean Morissette, who held me down. And I was surrounded by a bunch of great ladies, Miss Lila Narain, the Owusu family, the Camilleri family and such. And people around knew what was going on. Yeah. They knew me for a long time. They saw how I was raising my other two boys, and they said, this cannot be and this should not be. Mm-hmm. So they kept encouraging me, keep the faith, and, you're doing the right thing. Stay and keep going. And like I said, the ways was dark and slippery. There was no way that they were going to be able to consistently continue on this thing with denying access and charging me money for wanting access. I mean,
was it wait? Okay, so there's one thing I want to get some clarity on here, and that is, did you object? Did you object to paying child support?
100%. 100% I objected to paying child support. And like I said, by the conclusion of it, it just so turns out that I don't have to pay any child support. The mother was supposed to be paying me child support. Mm-hmm. But they kept on ignoring their laws that they have prescribed, mm-hmm. and trying to have informal hearings. And everything was to an end because even the final order, it wasn't something that was stipulated in court. It was something that the judge encouraged us to go outside of the courtroom and get it signed, and that is something called on consignment. Mm-hmm. So you have an order on consignment, mm-hmm. and when the order is on consignment, mm-hmm. they know what they're doing. It was clever because they don't want any situation in the court system where men could be helped in that regard. Because if the judge had the courage and he made the order himself, mm-hmm. then it could be used as a precedent for someone else.
Understood.
But because it's on consignment, someone can't necessarily use someone else's ruling, right, and agreement as a precedent to say it happened in this case, so it should be in this way. So vehemently, he must have sent us outside about 8 times because he refused to make the order, right? And this thing is just it's systematic.
Is it not their responsibility though to make the order when you're standing before the judge? Is it not?
It's their responsibility to make sure that the black man looks like an incompetent. He shouldn't be around any children, and he doesn't care for children and doesn't have any natural love in him. When I went in that courtroom before the judge in the first hearing, mm-hmm. he had a monologue at the end of it all. He said that he could see that I am angry, right? And
shouldn't you be angry at this point?
Well. This is the thing. This is the profiling that I'm talking about. He says that you seem like you're angry and you have deep-rooted anger problems, mm-hmm. right? and I went to interrupt him, and he said, "Nope, don't interrupt me. Let me finish." He stated that the father is obviously very intelligent. You can't make these things up. It's in the court order. And when he said it, he was angry at it, mm-hmm. and it's as if he was surprised, so he profiled me immediately to say that, here's a typical guy. He's coming. He doesn't want to pay child support, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
And then he said things like he did not understand my language was very difficult. He did not understand some of the things that I was saying and some of the things that I was asking. And those things were puzzling to me, but basically...
You weren't speaking English?
Well, I thought I was speaking a good form of the Queen's English, right? But these people, they play the fool because they don't want to give any orders, and they act as if the mother is someone that needs extra care in that, the lawyer said things like, Mrs. Marsh is a poor single mother on welfare. This is what he said in the courtroom, and I looked over at her to see if she was insulted by this, Mm-hmm. And this is what they sell, because why I'm here today is to let everyone understand the institution that is created to destroy the family and tear apart the household, and how lucrative the business of tearing apart the household is, and why the judge's position is very important, because he is the auctioneer of all of this. Because when it comes down to it, the amount of special services institutions that came up in this case, the Children's Aid, the Duty Council, mm-hmm. The Access Centers, and what do you call those people?
Were mediators involved?
Mediators? No. Youth and child workers. All these people were involved in the case. So essentially, when you have these...
Everybody's getting paid.
Yeah, everyone's getting paid. So the problem in the family court is going to create job opportunities for everyone who's taking youth and child worker right now at UFT or York University, one of those places. And it's going to create more children's aid staff, and it's going to create more files for them in order for them to say to the government, look, we have a situation here and we need more funding for those things. So it's something that's necessary to economically keep the city going.
Okay, so you battled in court. Finally, there was you got an order. And you're looking at this now and you're thinking, okay, finally, I can move forward.
Yes.
Everything that was going on in the past, whatever. I can move forward, spend time with my son, be the father that I'm trying to be with my son. Now I'm allowed to.
Yes.
So now, what happens?
Well, Elijah dies on February the 19th, and in conditions you wouldn't even wish on your worst enemy, and like I tell everyone.
When was the order finally? When was that sort of settled?
Well, the order for access to him was settled, I believe it was in October or December of 2015. Of 2014, sorry, okay. 14, and he died in 2015, February. And then lastly, the order again in regards to the support and everything was concluded in 2015, I believe November or December. Yeah.
So were you still paying child support until?
Oh yeah, I mean when
2000 till the end of.
When Elijah died, I mean, like I said in the video, I asked them to rescind the order of support. I tried to get a hearing to do that, and they told me that basically I would have to have a hearing and tell them why it's important to have a hearing to discuss about this. And at that hearing, I had the potential of losing and being charged cost again.
And this is after your son passed away.
That's right.
So you were still paying child support after your son passed away. In order to get that to stop, you had to have a hearing.
That's right. They wanted me to come to a hearing where I have to present evidence to tell them why, this hearing is necessary to talk about these things. And then the judge could make any cavalier decision he wants and say that, you have to continue on and you wasted the court time by bringing this hearing, so therefore you have to pay the cost of the proceedings and the lawyer's cost of the mother also.
Even though your son has passed?
That doesn't matter to these people. A lot of children actually pass away while going through the court system, and it's just another number.
Wow. Okay, we'll get back to that in a second. So your orders, you finally, you have access to your son, and then a few months after, how did you find out about the passing of your son?
I was at work, and I got a text messages first saying that one of my sons was missing. I didn't know, I thought I didn't really take it too seriously, but then I got a call from a friend of mine, and he told me he wanted to go look for this child who was missing, and he himself did not know it was my son, neither did I. And then the police called me and they asked me if Elijah was with me. I said, that's absurd. I'm at work. How could he be with me at work? Right? Now, the day that Elijah passed away, I was supposed to pick him up that afternoon at 3 o'clock from daycare.
Okay.
In order to fulfill his access requirements, right? And the police informed me. They asked me if I've seen him. And if he somehow walked, like 2 hours away, to reach my house. And that was how I found out. Yeah.
What went through your mind?
Nothing can go through your mind, because if anything does go through your mind, you're at risk of losing your mind. So I just stayed numb. And I checked out, and I was just listening for things and listening. Even I was at work for a bit when I heard. I was in a training session, as a matter of fact, and I can't remember now what they was training about, but I was just.
I'd be surprised if you remembered what they were training about.
Yeah.
What happened next?
Well, my friend afterwards, he called me back, and he just told me that they found a body, and that was.
So the police didn't call you to say this?
No.
No officials?
No, but they must have. I'm not saying they didn't try, because after he told me that my phone got dismantled, so I wasn't able to get any calls. I broke my phone after that, and I went home, and I don't remember too well, but at some point I ended up picking my friend up and driving to the hospital, and I saw some people there waiting there. The mother was there, and then I went in to see Elijah, and everything about his face told you he didn't go quietly into the night. And I immediately walked out of the hospital. I'm not sure where I went yet, but I walked out and I drove away.
I'm assuming this was like your worst nightmare, in that within all that you were trying to do through the court system to bring some awareness that your son was at risk, and to be standing there and seeing everything that you were trying to stop from happening had happened. As a parent, standing in a situation like that, what do you think? What do you do? How do you feel?
You check out. Because if you were allowed yourself to think, you might just end up in jail quite quickly, and it's not going to be expedient for any good process, right? So you check out and you just sit back and you go into the things that you know. You go into the things that made you. You just go into your meditation and you shut the world out and you count your heartbeats and you count your breath and you let everything go black and you just check out and wait, and then you try to respond to everybody with a controlled heart rate, because everything threatens to pull you into into despair and panic and anger after witnessing these kinds of things, right? And I mean, like you said, it's one thing for something to just happen, but I couldn't understand what was happening. I couldn't understand, what do you mean an accident? Who was there? Who was watching him? How did he even manage to do that? How is that even physically possible for him? And it was upsetting that to me, this woman would push this thing out to the worst possible scenario. Every time there was an opportunity to quell the nonsense and, create safer circumstances for Elijah, it was abandoned. You have to understand, on times when, you see, the court had Elijah and his older brother on two different schedules. And the mother pushed it forward that Elijah did not know me well enough, so it would be dangerous for him to be around me. And this is stupid, because Elijah was brought to about 3 different daycares. Each time he had to meet a new worker. Each time he cried, why were they more qualified to be around and safer than his father? But then again, they're an industry that makes money from the business of having children who are in disputes. So they were allowed to watch my son. 3 different daycares. And there was times when she would have to drop off his older brother to me. And instead of dropping Elijah too, she would drive from Toronto all the way to Oshawa to drop him to an uncle who could watch him. So these are the things that, you have to check out and blank out from. Because when you hear now what happened and they say that it's an accident, this was practiced incompetence and practiced bad will. So you have to blank out and you have to check out.
You've made some comments about what your thoughts are as to why it was that your son was able to the situation that he was in, as to why he was able to get out of the home. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your perspective on that. Because from what you've
well, I think my perspective is the same as everyone's perspective. That's why people wanted to watch the video. People were asking the same questions, right? I mean, the second door that Elijah would have went through, leading out to the hallway of the building, it's a heavy door. They didn't say that he opened the door. They have no proof that he opened the door or had any proof that he could reach it. They had no proof that the door was locked. All of these things were just statements being made and assumptions. And the distance he went, he could not have gotten out of all those doors. You'd have to show me. You'd have to show me how he made it. And they themselves, the mother herself, said he's never done this before. Right? There is a lot of questions in regards to what a lot of the people who were supposed to be in the house and supposed to be taking care of him, where they were and what they were doing. There was lies told even by her, saying that she was somewhere and she clearly wasn't there. There was double speaking from the grandmother, who said she was there, then she wasn't there. And of course there's been complete silence from the teenage sisters, who were the last ones to see Elijah, right? I mean, when you say you lay down a child at about 20 to 8 in the evening, and you don't check on him again until 7:30 the next morning, so I have a problem with that. So something is wrong with that. Children get hungry in the night. Children get up to pee. What's going on? Who can really believe that? And who can really say that, oh, he walked out and he was too smart for his own good? Because if he was too smart for his own good, then you would have some kind of precautions to stop the inquisitiveness of the child, right? And especially when the police told me that they put pillows around his bed. There was pillows around his bed. That tells me that you're not watching him. And if he by somehow ends up rolling off the bed, he wouldn't have hurt himself, because you've put the pillows as a safeguard so he wouldn't hit his head or something. Right? So there's a lot of questions, and believe me, in the next coming weeks, there is some things that will come out. It's going to have to. It cannot stay. So some things I cannot speak about right now, but there is something that will come out. So we'll get to that.
With all the the interviews, the conversations, the social media push, all the things that you've been doing, what is the message that you want?
I want to make aware to people what goes on when you go to this court system. I want to make aware to the people what a lot of the fathers are doing and what a lot of the mothers are doing. I want to make aware to people what is happening to our children. And it's the most dangerous situations, because to me, you hear all kinds of conversations nowadays about what lives matters and what have we, but the amount of lives that's lost through this court system, and I'm not just speaking of sudden death, but miserable lives of people growing up, having gone through this court system. I don't know who my father is. I'm looking for my father. People being taken advantage of in their life because they're looking for that father figure that the court system has pushed away. And some predator or someone gets to put influence on them and put them in precarious situations. So many people just at this disconnect of having that father figure in their lives, having miserable lives. And it's not really fair, because when you're growing up, you need to know who you are pretty quick. And it's hard enough to figure that out. But then you send them on a mission to try to figure out who or where their father is also. And you just send them amongst the jackals and wolves. And this is something that needs to stop, because in my case, the court situation was not necessary. This was just volatile anger because I was always in the life of my son. You know, before Elijah was born, our older son, I was always in his life. It's in court documents. I was seeing him more than the mother was. So what was the problem? You take care of your end, and I'll take care of my end. Right? There didn't need to be any economic assault towards me. I mean, and during the time, I mean, you speak of the social media. I'm a person, you're not going to find me on Facebook. Prior to that, nobody knew who I was. I don't have any of those outlets, and never brought myself on any kind of stage to say, look, I want to be recognized, and this is so. My life had been very private, and these people attempted to economically assault me and make sure that I was nothing and that I was at the mercy of someone else for the rest of my days. This woman I have electronic messages of this woman saying, you'll be shaking your head the rest of your life. Now you're on support, you'll be shaking your head the rest of your life, and you're not going to see your children. And these are things that the judge was seeing and just ignored them. So you see, the court system is something that is weaponized by a lot of individuals. It's weaponized by them to get back at someone.
Some people might be saying, you know, well, we hear what you're saying, but, you know, maybe you're just angry. You know, you're just angry at your ex, and, you know, you weren't in the spotlight before, and now, you know, you're just angry and you want that publicity, and you want, you know, you want to be seen. What would you say about that?
Well, by the time your son dies and anger is not part of your emotions, I think you ought to check out completely. I mean, the idea that, oh, you're bitter, you're angry, that's absurd. What kind of la la land are these people living in? I mean, they romanticize stories of ancient Greeks who went to war with another nation just because they stole a woman. So what do you think a man is going to do when his son now is taken away and dies under these circumstances? Anger, and yes, you better believe that I'm angry. You better believe that I'm upset.
What type of an investigation was done?
Well, not much, because, you know, like I said on the video, the police told me they were hampered by there not being any video evidence, right? And
So there was, when your son was leaving, there was no video in the lobby?
well, for example, in the hallway, it's quite a long hallway that he had to walk through to reach the lobby, especially the point where he's looking back at the lobby. You don't know if he's looking back at someone. You don't know if someone directed him out. You don't know any of those things because there is no camera in that area. So, and also the sisters who claim that they were home, there's a habitat in that building where they often visit each other's apartments. And there would be nothing to say that, okay, she walked in at this time or she walked in at that time. Okay. You understand?
Yeah.
So in that respects, that's what was going on.
So there's no real way of telling who was home or if anyone was home?
Well, not yet, but like I said, there are some things that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, and I'll find out more. But also the
but in the lobby where he would have to, you know, get outside.
Yes.
Usually there are cameras, especially.
Well, that's what there was, and he was by himself there. And in some of the pictures, he looked up, he looked back, but you couldn't see beyond that vicinity where he was. You couldn't see up the stairs and around the corner or anything like that. And also, it turns out afterwards that the children's aid never even investigated the situation, right? And I found that out because after Elijah died, they called me in regards to my surviving son with the mother and said that, we want to speak to you because he might have anxiety. And they tried to make it seem as if I had caused the anxiety somehow. But that's what happens because we're still yet to go to court. So these are weaponized systems. So what the mother will do is get someone to say, make an anonymous call. So they want to come to interrogate you to see if they can get something. The children's aid becomes a witness for them. Then they can use the children's aid in court to say, yeah, we went to see him and this happened and that happened. And I let them know it's in their best interest not to come to see me. And I inquired, as in the YouTube video, why, how come you did not investigate in regards to Elijah? And the woman, you would think you were listening to The Exorcist for how much time she stuttered. And then, it's just puzzling because these people have told so much lies. While I spoke to them, not all of the recordings is on there. They admitted from my older son, telling them of abuses that he went through from the sisters who was watching Elijah. And they did not write it down in the court. So what they would have in the report, they would not report it to the court.
This is Children's Aid.
This is the Children's Aid.
Okay. So they were aware of certain things, but they didn't bring that forth.
No, they wouldn't put it in the report.
Why do you think that is?
Because we'll go back to the same thing.
But when you think of the courts, it's supposed to be impartial. The court is supposed to look at the evidence. The court is supposed to make a judgment based on the evidence that's in front of them. And so, I
mean, you can go back from Christ to Barabbas. I don't think the court has ever been impartial. It's something that is, how do you say, it's subjective. It's subjective to those who with special interests, such as the Children's Aid. Look, they were not making any money off me. Every time they come, I said, get out of here. They were upset that I had a system of raising children that was successful. They were upset that they couldn't put me into that typical image they tried to put the black man in, to say that he's irresponsible and he can't take care of children and shouldn't be around children. Listen, these people wish they could say of me, he's doing drugs, he's doing criminal activity, he's one popular one they like to do in court, he's smoking marijuana around his children. They just try to listen. This place is ridiculous, and I wasn't making them any money, so it wasn't in their interest to help me. But Mrs. Marsh was making them money, because every time they called, they would offer special services. And then the Children's Aid reported to the court that I am being belligerent because I am not offering the child any help by putting him through their service.
By putting him through
their services. I'm not accepting any of their services. So they made it seem like a bad thing, and then the judge looked at that as I'm someone who cannot be, reasoned with. So therefore, I was.
So why wouldn't you accept any of their services?
Well, who are they? Who are they? When you look back in history, people need to understand something. This institution, the Children's Aid, these people changed their names. When you look back in history, even Canadian history, this is the same institution that was responsible for all the horrors that happened in the Native Indian boarding schools, right? And their process there was to take children away from their parents, strip them of their culture, help them forget their language, and things of that nature. So I look back I study history a lot. And when I see what they're about, especially when I see that they're not reporting some of the things that are necessary in the court, they're being biased. And this is the history. And you go online and you research the Children's Aid. Give me one good report of anybody who had any good report about them. 132 children die a year in their care. Give me one good report about the CAS. And I'm there and I'm taking care of my children. Like I said, I have 11 brothers and sisters. We all grew up fine. Why do they believe I need their system? Perhaps they should use mine.
So that's a good point. That's a good point. Wow. What's next? I mean, you do have another child.
I have two other sons.
Yep. So one of the.
One is still with the mother of Elijah, Mrs. Marsh, yes.
That is still in the same situation. How old is that one?
Well, that situation is wrapped up. My boy Mikhail is 9 years old. And like I said, I'm off any kind of child support for Mikhail. And he's with me 40% of the time.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. And that's what I suggest most fathers do. Keep fighting for access. It's beyond me how any man accepts these ludicrous judgments of saying that you should be with your child twice a month and every other weekend. I don't know how one is able to do that and stay insane. Keep going for access, and eventually they have to turn it over.
So your concerns are not the same for your older son, which is great. So yeah, what's next with all of this? Like, you're standing as a guy waving a flag saying, "Hey, there's a problem with the system."
Well, currently, Patrick, I help a lot of individuals do their court papers. Mm-hmm. Right, and I'm helping a lot of people in who's going through the same scenario right now, mm-hmm. and that is helping them financially save from hiring the lawyer who then hires a law clerk, right, to do your papers for you. So those individuals, that's what I'm doing in the meantime, mm-hmm. and like I said, there is still some issues to be taken care of in regards to what occurred with Elijah, and there's still some information to be heard that I am waiting on, mm-hmm. and just taking care of my son, consoling him, and hoping that this doesn't affect him to a high degree, and trying to separate him from the damage that the system tried to do onto him, mm-hmm. which they will try to do onto a lot of children who are going through the system right now.
There was a lot of crowdfunding support.
Yeah.
After the passing of your son, mm-hmm. To help with various different costs and everything like that.
Yep.
How did you feel about the, I guess, society was rallying around to support your son?
It was natural. I think that was the most natural thing that I've seen, because I traveled in the summer, mm-hmm. to Grenada after Elijah died with his two brothers, right? And there were people from Switzerland, people from England, all over the place, mm-hmm. who saw him and who came to visit my mom's house, because our family is large in the UK, and everyone, without even knowing his name, because his name is Marsh, it's not Barry like his other two brothers. Another thing again that's used, by a partner who's upset, like, mm-hmm. I'm supposed to feel hurt because you changed the name of one of your sons, even though he's from, the same father. And that's only something that's going to confuse him and his brother. So if it's your cup of tea, it is what it is. But there's people who saw his face and knew who he was related to. Mm-hmm. So many people said they felt this and they cried because of what occurred. And it's something that reached international, and I wasn't aware on how wide it reached until I went to the tropics and went to the airports, and the crowdfunding is just the people's expression showing love towards and sympathy for what happened. And I started to study this thing more in terms of, if you have time and you look on the internet, that year, 2015, mm-hmm. how many young black boys died in the custody of their mothers? And then there was always some kind of crowdfunding situation, yeah. Right? And RIP T-shirts. One mother, I believe, even made a rap album for her son.
Okay.
And that was the one in I believe it was in Chicago. Mm-hmm. And so many children died of irresponsibility that year, and not much was thought of it. And where were the fathers in the situation? It was, the whole thing was just disturbing and bizarre,
You did everything that you could possibly do to try to protect your son.
Everything. And I left it all on the floor. And maybe that's one thing that's keeping me, conscious. I left it all on the floor.
How do you like it's a hard thing when you stand and you try to do everything that you could possibly do, because you could kind of see what the possibilities are, and you're trying to avoid that possibility, and you do everything that you could possibly do to ensure that that's not reality.
Yeah.
And not because of anything you didn't do, but because of whatever the circumstances are, what you were hoping to avoid is now reality.
Yeah. Well, I did everything that I could do, Patrick. But if you would, the community and the city failed Elijah. A lot of them saw what was going on. I went to certain lawyers, and one thing that kept me going, I must give reverence to Keyshawn Hyacin. He's a good family lawyer. I went to him and I showed him my case, and he said, "This is ridiculous. They can't keep denying you. Just go back." He said, "I'm not going to take your money because your case is better than most things I've ever seen. You go back and you keep fighting." He says, "I know this judge, he'll eventually get it because..."
Eventually.
Yeah, he says, "This is completely outlandish." I went to another lawyer. He says, "I know you don't want to hear this, but this is the way that it goes. And the best thing you could do, just ask them to have your child every other week and maybe one weekend per month." So I was exposed to an embassy of cowards who knew what was going on and refused to do anything about it because it was a welfare system for the lawyers.
So everybody's saying, it's business,
we know what's going on.
Business as usual.
Yeah, we know what's going on. And they knew that all they had to do was sign up and get paid. The family lawyer is different from the criminal lawyer, and from the civil lawyer. Those courts, you have to have evidence. In the family court, it's cavalier. I mean, that's why they affirm, right? They started to affirm instead of going under the Bible now, because they realize that, people lie all the time. And when someone does lie, they're not going to check it out. So the system as a whole, people were aware of what was going on, and nobody wants to challenge the judge because, unfortunately, each lawyer believes that one day they're going to get to the status of the judge. So they want to have good relations with the embassy. There's times when I would go to the judge called recess, and I would go to the mall and just to wait up the long time. And people that I was awaiting and seeing that they were adverse, and I saw their lawyers having lunch in the mall, right? So it's business as usual. And when you try to appeal to people to say that, okay, I went to speak to this lady's mother, I went to speak to this lady's brother to say, look, this is what's going on. And nobody wanted to get involved.
Why do you think that is, though?
Well, because it's a system of greed. Those who are in a position of advantage never willingly relinquish that position. No one who has power willingly says, you know what, okay, I'm just going to relinquish it and we'll just go square right now. It has to be, clawed from their hands. And I think they're worried that if I wasn't paying Mrs. Marsh, illegally paying Mrs. Marsh, then they're going to have to help her. So it's better that I pay. And then, they wanted to keep Elijah around them because that's their family and it makes everything look good for them, right? And it was absurd. They told me, don't worry, you're worrying too much. It'll be okay and everything will be fine. And then when everything happens, they say to me, the grandmother said to me, what, are you trying to say we can't take care of his brother now? I'm like, well, yeah, because in no order of business, when you completely drop the ball, are they going to hire you to carry on business the same way again? So, the whole system has to do with money. The whole system has to do with money. They take you to court because they want money. They want to make life easier for themselves. They have unrealistic expectations of what things are supposed to be like, because when you separate from a man or a woman, it's not going to be the same anymore. You're not going to have your child home full time anymore. But this court tries to tell them that, you can still have the normal life and we'll take as much money from that person as possible to make sure that you're not affected. So they want to do certain things. They want to do certain separations, and they don't want any consequence and nothing to change from it, which is absurd.
We've got like 3 minutes left. What would you say to, the number of men who are stuck in the system, who are the ones who are looking at it and saying, you know what, I don't know if I can do this, man. This is ridiculous. You know what? When the kid's 18 and they want to come look me up, that's fine.
Well,
they're the ones who are, about to start their journey through the system.
You have to do what's best for you and your sanity. I know that the system takes care of women and children. I know it will not take care of you. So do what's best for your mentality. But depending on the circumstance and situation, you might not want to leave your child in the presence of certain people when you see certain aspects of irresponsibility, because some people are just flat out dangerous, as in the case of Elijah. And if you're prepared and okay with your child dying, you could walk away, but just know that depending on the situation, you're going to have to assess that if you have to handle your business, whether it be through the court or any other way, because by any means necessary, you should be protecting the life of your son or daughter.
Wow. Thank you for coming on the show and for sharing, your story, sharing your experience. The journey that you went through clearly is not an easy one. It's not a journey that I think any parent would want to go through. Having that challenge of trying to protect your child, and then having the outcome that you had, and then the struggles that you faced in order to be a part of your child's life, and the system that seems to not be cooperating with you. That is an amazing story in itself for you to be able to walk through. I don't know. I'm kind of a loss for words here, because the emotional struggle that you must have went through, and being able to keep your sanity, keep your not to give up, and to continue to challenge the system and continue to highlight and say, somebody needs to look at what's going on here. I got to say, the courage and strength that you've demonstrated in regards to that is huge.
Thanks, Patrick.
I definitely wish you all the success and continuing to highlight exactly what's going on and being able to affect some change. You seem to reluctantly have become walked into the spotlight to be able to highlight certain things and have the unique position to be able to highlight certain things that a lot of us don't have. And I hope that you continue to shine that light very brightly. Thank you very much for being on the show. And for those out there in cyberspace, by all means, they can reach out to you if they want to support.
Yes.
How would they do that?
Well, anyone who wants support in terms of getting court documents done, or getting an idea of what happens when you go into there, you could send an email to that's FOR, the number 3, LIJAH @gmail.com. That's where we'll be answering all sorts of questions and helping people out.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for being on the show today. Definitely enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon, and stay tuned next week as we will be back. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Around iLife Radio, the new social network.
I said that I love you so, and I mean it so. From the bottom of my heart, I'm telling you to play. Baby, I saw that something in your eyes. Comes to no surprise that you turn me oh so giddy. What's up, people? This is Omar, and you're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio.
Hey, this is Emily King, and you're listening to iLive Radio.
Rare groove, revival, slow jams, upfront, old school.
The best music around in stereo sound.
Music back to back to back. Radio.
How you doing? What's good? It's Nkechi the Lyrical, sitting in my zone here, vibing and listening to iLive. And if you don't know, get to know. And if you do know, you don't know. And if you know, then relax and enjoy the ride.
You're listening to iLive Radio. This is Jay Most. Enjoy.
Online and on the go on your mobile phone. We're the internet's best choice.
It's going down on Spinner.
Hey, what's up, people? It's your boy Stokes the MC telling you to tune in to Spinner every Sunday from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. only on iLiveRadio.com. Spinner features fresh themes weekly revolving around music, culture, art, and current events. Interviews with some of your favorite international and homegrown talents, as well as ongoing informative series like Legends and Icons and the Save 10 Challenge. So tell a friend and tune in this Sunday, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. to Spinner, hosted by yours truly, Stokes the MC, only on iLive Radio. And until then, be awesome to somebody.
This is Sharisha from The Spot. Catch me every Sunday, 5 to 7 p.m. EST, playing the very best in neo-soul, jazz, underground hip-hop, art, music, poetry, and community, right here on iLive Radio.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
Time.
The Soul Expression Show.
Most things
with DJ Sessions
are subject to change. But there's something mystical and magical about two people and that thing they call love.